as we welcome in James Ham. James, you have broken no news since you've left the building. Um, why not?
It's quiet. It's just quiet.
There's
No.
those things where people say it's too quiet.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even know
I,
what it means.
It's just quiet.
Yeah.
I think we all know they're like on the precipice of doing something. They're attempting to finish up the deal here, whether it's with Brooklyn, whether it's with Utah, whatever it is. But we're just in that waiting phase where we have no idea what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We just waiting it out.
That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. James, I want to kind of like ask you. Sorry, looking in the chat. Sorry, Devontae.
Devontae Ham, yeah. You have
the coldest Ham.
Yeah, there was an accusation that James might not be your real name.
Okay.
Yeah, this old Gavin from the Wake Up Call, James, if that's your real name.
The coldest Ham.
So we determined that your real name is either Devontae, the coldest, or DeBrickashaw.
Oh, like DeBrickashaw Ferguson, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because you look like a DeBrickashaw Ham.
That makes sense.
I'm just envisioning like do you, Sarah, take this man DeBrickashaw to be with
us? Wait, what is this? Do I know that they stole his gifts?
Yes. Okay. All right. So what happened is
James will move some furniture.
Yeah, well, that's what I told him. I was like, listen, I don't know if you guys are doing a bit. James has the sense of humor of a cactus. You just don't start a fight with James Ham, please. It was the snacks that are being held in the producer room over here that involved some of your Christmas gifts to me and Kenny were discovered by members of the Wake Up Call. And we were accused of stealing snacks from the snack shack and hoarding them into our studio. And because I'm a faithful listener, I was like, hey, James buys those snacks for us. Like he literally funds a whole snack shack for ESPN 1320. And they go, oh, well, we don't know if that's true. We don't even know if his real name is James.
Real quick, too, when have you ever seen a bag of peanut M&Ms out in the snack area?
Yeah, those things are the first to go. Oh, and when Katie said there were low bites in there, you would have thought they discovered gold.
Well, low bites are gold. I don't know. They are. They are gold. I don't know if you guys noticed. I brought in a new box of goldfish crackers.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was referenced. Yep.
And Skinny Pop. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything was rummaged through.
Yeah.
The Fortress of Snackitude is fully stocked.
Oh, it definitely is. But there's an overflow to the fortress that was discovered by the public today.
The public.
Some nefarious characters is what you're saying. They go to Disneyland without inviting us.
Well, another redhead. So I'd be careful. Like little redheads out here running
can't be trusted
in the Odyssey Studios. Yeah, where were we?
Hold on.
We're lost.
Trying to get down here. James, I just kind of wanted to reiterate what I heard or what I thought I heard from you is you believing that in the Cam Johnson situation, if a deal isn't done while they're in Brooklyn, it doesn't bode well for a deal happening in general between those two. What's kind of your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like fully if it doesn't happen today, it will never happen. But I do know that like when you leave Brooklyn, if you're in the same room and you're looking across the table from each other and you can't come to a conclusion on a trade, that probably means you need to move forward and do whatever else you're going to do that makes sense for your team. Brooklyn they've got to do what's best for them. And they're the only ones that know what's best for them, what that means for them and their franchise. Clearly, losing games is what they believe is best for them, and that's fine. But they also, they think they've got something that everybody wants in Cam Johnson, and they think they hold all the cards, and maybe they do. But like if we get to this next, if we get past February 6th and he's still there in Brooklyn, he becomes a lot less valuable. I mean, he'll be 29 years old, 2 years left on a contract, and it's not like, again, like I like Cam Johnson as a player, but it's not like he is a franchise changing. This is not like the Kings are going out and doing the Domantas Sabonis trade 2.0. Like, this is a solid acquisition that would, like, basically be the same equivalent of the summer when they went out and got Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk and, did all of those deals. So again, I like Cam Johnson. I just think that, he's in the Harrison Barnes vein of trade acquisitions. I wouldn't even put him in the same like level as like the Rudy Gay acquisition. It's a really nice pickup, and it's a certainly a position of need, but it's also somebody that may or may not be a starter on your team.
Is there a scenario where the Sacramento Kings could pull off both trades for Cam and John Collins?
It's really tough. So I did the math, and basically they're right around $47 million for the contract between the two of them. And if you're looking at like, how do you get to that? I think it's 49 million, 26 and a half and 22 and a half. So yeah, 49 million. The Kings are roughly, like, according to Keith Smith and to, some of the other guys out there, because of some of the easily obtainable bonuses that are built into Sabonis and some of the other players' salaries, they're roughly 7 million under the luxury tax, under the first apron, where they're hard capped, right? So that means that the Kings would have to come up with basically 42 million bucks in contract in order to go get those guys. They can't go below that number because of the hard cap situation. And that's just really difficult to piece together a trade. If you look at all of their player salaries, it's really difficult to come up with 47 million bucks worth of 42 million dollars worth of contract. That doesn't mean that you can't trade a trade exception to somebody and have that player go to Brooklyn as part of the deal. And, like, you can't, there's ways to mix and match as part of this deal, but it's still very, very complex. And that's without either, again, if we look at Trey Lyles, just look at the three bigger contracts of players that we have heard in the past. So if you do, Kevin Huerter at 17 million, 16.8, Trey Lyles at 8 million, that's 25 right there. And then let's say Devin Carter at like 4.8. So you're a little bit under 30 million bucks. Now, where do you get that additional 13 or 12 or 13 million to make a deal work and stay under that cap? And that's just where it becomes extremely difficult. So, you could try to throw a whole bunch of minimum salary guys, but that's not going to fly because you still have to replace those people after they're gone. So yeah, it's going to get complicated. And, that's why if we start hearing, like, if you're talking both of them, like, the next names you're going to start hearing are Keegan Murray, or you're going to start hearing DeMar DeRozan. And it's only because that's the only way to make that deal work, to get both players.
Okay. Well, we don't need to do that. I was
Yeah,
just asking.
Yeah, it's just a numbers game about the amount of contracts you have. And even if you were to say, oh, well, how about Keegan Murray? That puts you at like 39 million. You still have to include two other minimum scale guys. And so basically, what are we saying? Like a 6-for-1? And that doesn't happen in the NBA because that means the Nets have to waive 6 guys or 5 guys in order to make the deal work.
I'm just kind of throwing something out there. I don't necessarily think this is the case, but I mean, would you be able to do that with other teams involved? Like if it was a 3-team deal and maybe you wouldn't have to give up as many players, or, you make the contracts work that way potentially? I don't know.
No, it's possible. I mean, like a part of a larger, like 3 or 4 team deal, that's where, again, the Kings have a stack of trade exceptions. I think they've got one like 6.8 million from the Sasha Vezenkov trade. They've got another one, like a small one, like 500,000. But they also have like a $4.7 million one from Jade McDaniels, and then there's one more that they have, and I can't remember off the top. Oh, the Chris Duarte trade. They have a $5 or $6 million trade exception from that as well. So that's where you might be able to, because basically, I've talked about this a couple of times. An NBA trade is rarely just like one salary swap for another salary swap, and even, I mean, unless two players make the exact same money, then like trade exceptions are built. So let's say you trade a $40 million player for a $35 million player. The team that is taking back the $40 million player, they actually are trading a $35 million player and a $5 million trade exception. So it's like a coupon that you can go use, and that's why they're called like simultaneous and non-simultaneous trades. So, a trade could literally take an entire year to be completed in its entirety because you have these trade exceptions that can be used like almost like a voucher down the road. So, is it possible that the Kings could come up with a way to get use these trade exceptions to work with other teams? That's possible. But what you can't do is you can't combine them, and if they can't go for like as part of a player, you can't put them with a bunch of players and make them into like that $42 million mark. You have to actually go get players and include them in the trade and have them be part of a trade exception. That you trade a trade exception somewhere else and somebody else takes that contract and sends it somewhere else. It's got to be part of a giant trade.
Well, a giant trade wouldn't hurt because some of the Kings' shortcomings were on full display at Madison Square Garden the other night against the Knicks, and man, that lack of size was out there. I don't feel that rears its head as often as some of us like to talk about it, but man, it sure did against New York, just as it did versus Denver a couple of days prior.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Number one, OG Anunoby looked like, I mean, he hasn't looked that good all year. Just hitting every shot that he took. And Mikal Bridges like looked spectacular as well. But then you let a 6'4" guard go in and put up 20, 18, and 11 on you. Like that's where, like, I agree, the size and athleticism, but the size, athleticism, and then heart of heart, like really got you. And so, yeah, it was a tough loss. I definitely, it wasn't one of the better looks that the Kings have had under the Doug Christie era, but it just continues to shine this bright light on this problem that the Kings have, and that is that they realistically don't have the length and athleticism to compete with a couple of teams in the league. And sometimes you can mask it. Sometimes you can get hot from three and sort of win a game either way. But other times when you play a team that's gritty as well as length, athleticism, and then they start hitting shots, you're going to have trouble.
Is there anybody? I guess I'm looking at the guys that are available right now, but John Collins, Cam Johnson, I'll throw Kuzma in there. Do you think those guys would have been able to stop what happened on Saturday night, or is it just an all around? Because I kind of feel like it's an all around bad matchup, like the Knicks, Josh Hart, all this other stuff. But would Cam or any of those other guys been able to stop that and could stop something like that in the future?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, you're talking about a team that has multiple players that have the length and athleticism that you don't. So, I mean, that's where it really becomes a problem. And like, I mean, we can all see it. De'Aaron Fox is totally banged up and doesn't look like himself right now. So that adds to it. I thought Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis were spectacular. But if you're going to beat a team like that, you got to be firing on all cylinders, and the Kings weren't. And so it just becomes extremely difficult to try to figure out like how you compete with some of the teams in the league. Now, not every team in the league is that big of a problem. It's just that's one team that has, I don't know, what are they like every guy that they have, I feel like on their front line is, like 6'8", 6'9", but with like a 7'3" wingspan plus. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and I don't know that a single acquisition of Cam Johnson is going to fix that. It's just an overall it's the way Kenny just laid it out. It's just a bad matchup. Like the Kings just have some bad matchups out there. Interestingly enough, though, they got roughed up by Denver the other day. I feel like they normally match up really well with Denver. I feel like that's the team that they play really, really well against, despite the size differences. I don't know. Maybe we're waiting on Valanciunas. Maybe we're grabbing Cam in Brooklyn, swooping down, getting Jonas Valanciunas out of Washington, and by the time we get to what's Oklahoma City Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh God!
Everybody, get your hard hat, get your belt, get a beverage.
Yeah, well, that's what TC said. Get your hard hat, belt, and beverage. We don't know why, but just go get it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, TC also believes that the 49ers should sign Robert Saleh as their head coach and demote Kyle Shanahan to assistant.
It's better assistant to the head coach.
Yeah, assistant to
It's
not
better
even
than,
not assistant head coach, assistant to the head coach.
It's even better. It's still even better than his previous take of hiring Rex Ryan. So we're taking baby steps with TC. We've gotten him off the Rex Ryan idea, and now we're just back to Robert Saleh. It's fine.
Yeah, that's tough. Look, I think like at the end of the day, adding a player like Cam Johnson or like John Collins, like it doesn't hurt. That's what you need. You have to find that length and athleticism that other teams have, and like there's a couple of teams that like you may never match up with, and that's like we understand that. Like Boston, you're gonna have problems, but most of the teams we're talking about here are teams that you would face like in the NBA finals if somehow you get there for a 7-game set. And I just don't think the Kings are in a place where they need to worry about that yet. They need to worry about right now is getting better so they can survive the Western Conference and maybe get into a 4, 5, 6 seed by the time this thing's all said and done. So they're in the playoff picture. And that's where I do think having a guy like Cam Johnson. So Cam is so incredibly switchable, and him alongside Keegan Murray is going to be a really, really fun tandem. And then if you throw in Keon Ellis, that's where all of a sudden the Kings can put, if you throw those three out on the floor with a De'Aaron Fox, you're going to have like a defensive juggernaut for segments of the game. That's going to be really good because of the switchability and because of the athleticism and the length. It's still going to take more down the road. You're just trying to build. You're trying to take that next step. And you brought up Denver. Like that Denver loss was a scheduling loss. Like I know people don't want to hear that. And you can even throw the Denver loss in. I mean the New York loss in as well. I mean that's 3 games in 4 nights with a trip from Sacramento to Denver and Denver to New York, and all of your players playing 38 minutes, 39 minutes in the first 2 games of the 3 games in 4 nights. And that's tough with all that travel and everything else. That's not to make excuses. The team needs to show up and have a better performance and do something like box out Hart. But at the end of the day, I don't worry about the last couple of losses, and I think they can get back on the right track tonight and then set themselves up to finish the road trip with an intriguing 3-game stretch where it's like, who are you? What do you look like at the end of this, and then what do you look like the 6 games after that when the schedule lightens up a little bit more.
So you're not discouraged by what we saw on Saturday?
No, I don't think so. Especially like, look, I think like De'Aaron Fox is totally beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Like the extent of how badly he's beat up, I don't know, but like over the last 5 games, he's shooting like less than 30% from the field. So he's averaging 15 points and less than 30% from the field. Like the glute issue, I know it moved into his back a little bit and he's been super stiff, but then, the pinky issue on his left hand, the thumb issue on his right hand, He's just a bit of a mess right now, but he's still fighting through, and he's still going out there and playing for his teammates. And for as bad as he's shooting over that same 5-game stretch, he's averaging like 7 assists and 1.8 turnovers per game, and he's averaging over a block per game, which is crazy. So he's doing his best to be a functional member of the team. He's just not scoring like he has in the past, and it's falling on guys like DeMar DeRozan and guys like Malik Monk to take bigger steps forward.
Can we point out Mr. Rancho in the chatty house real quick? Because he is just rallying behind like De'Aaron Fox needs to sit. Him being on the court is not helping his team and all of this.
Disagree.
Mr. Rancho, we've been over this really since Friday. And I know that's been a big talking point. Like De'Aaron should sit a few games. De'Aaron sitting a few games does nothing. Like it does absolutely nothing. If you want De'Aaron Fox to get his hands fixed, great. That's perfectly fine. He's out for the season. So those are your options. He plays through this, or he's out for the season. There's no in between. Sitting does nothing. He needs this fixed. And I think I think the idea that De'Aaron is hurting the team because he's shooting a lower percentage than he normally is just not accurate.
No, sorry, James, but they scored 120 something the other night. They scored 130 or something against the Warriors. Him hurting the team offensively is not the issue, and he's playing good defense. So I don't think he's hurting them at all.
Well, that and the fear of De'Aaron Fox is still there. Like that's like you still have to send your best defender at De'Aaron Fox. Now you might get midway through a game and say, "Well, this guy doesn't really have it. We should shift that guy over to Monk, or shift him to DeMar DeRozan." But for the first half of games, like you're game planning Fox first with this team, and that's just a reality. And so having him on the court, at least for right now, maybe a week from now, if this is still going on, and he's strung together like a 7, 8, 9, 10 game stretch where he isn't very good, that's when you might see teams adjust a little bit. But still, the second they adjust on him, he's going to go right back to who he was. And I think the biggest problem is he's just not as aggressive going to the basket right now. I just don't think he feels good, and I don't think he's probably a little concerned about going to the rim and either getting knocked down again, or getting his right hand hit again, like Jokic did. Jokic hit him a couple of times really hard. Like the next time they play Denver, I would make sure somebody made sure
Put him on his ass.
that you didn't.
What?
Put him on his ass.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. You know what I would do? I would make sure that he felt every single foul. Like absolutely unequivocally, he's getting hit on his hand, on his wrist, on his thumb every single time he goes anywhere near the basket, because the way that he chopped down on Fox, that's, you need to stand up for your teammates sometimes, and that is one of those things where it stands out. Like, hey, like what are you doing
Doug,
karate chops?
Get Crowder in there.
Well, look,
Yeah,
I'll go say, I'll go do it myself.
Yeah, no. Hell, he almost did it in like his second game.
I'm going getting Valanciunas just so he can throw down Jokic at least once. Like
Doug was about to go at who was it? JJ, Jaren Jackson, and then Steve Kerr,
yeah.
and then
Steve Kerr. Oh, and Draymond.
Oh well.
I mean, I think everybody would like that.
Beat Draymond's ass. We'll come back. James Ham's with us. We're an hour away from the start of the Sacramento Kings and the Brooklyn Nets. We've got you covered here. Kings basketball. Steelo and Casey on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Man, De'Aaron hasn't been to the free throw line in 2 games.
I got one of the strangest texts ever. The NBA reached out.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Hey, are you in town for the Nets game tonight?" And I said, "No." They like to be the pool reporter.
Mm.
And they said, "Okay, are you going to cover the game from home?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "Can you be the pool reporter from home?" And I'm like, "Okay." Like, that's weird. So tonight I'm the poll reporter for the game from home. And if there's an issue, they will send a Zoom link and I'll go on Zoom and question the officials from my house
Oh, I am begging for an issue.
in New York.
I
So
am begging for something to go wrong, so James has to get on the Zoom and ask the question.
Yeah, James, I asked for replay 3 different times. You messed it up.
nobody clipped that because I don't know that I was supposed to tell anybody that, but nobody clipped that and put it out there. I just one of those things. I thought it was very strange. Yeah.
Are you here in Brooklyn to cover the game? No, doesn't matter. Could you do it anyways?
Doesn't matter.
Thanks, James.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens here. You know, I don't think there is a way that they can do both of those, make both those trades unless Keegan and Keegan or DeMar are involved, and I would just be surprised if DeMar was involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither one of them. This artist has more certified platinum hit songs than Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Chris Brown, Post Malone, Rihanna, and The Weeknd. Any guesses who it is? More certified platinum hit songs than
I'm gonna take a
Ariana
glimpse. I've been
Grande.
saying his name a lot. Is it Jay-Z?
Is it a rapper? Do I get that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a rapper?
Mm-hmm.
Eminem?
It's Future.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Future's
It's
kinda
Future.
crazy. You don't think about it that way, but the resume is kind of insane.
That's amazing.
I haven't heard anything on Jonas Valanciunas. I think that's just been one of those people that Kings fans would like. And, I don't think it's been that much of a buzz. But I
Yeah.
do think the Kings have, their options here. And I think they can always, if it falls through with Cam and it falls through with John Collins for some reason, I still think they can go back to the Kuzma well one more time.
Sorry, this actually looks like it'd be really cool. This is a great idea. A road trip.
Oh, okay.
AEW is coming to town.
Okay. Town. What do you mean town?
They're coming to town. They're coming to Sacramento.
Okay.
They're going to be at the Memorial Auditorium. That actually sounds like a great idea.
That makes sense. That works.
That might be a good show. Well,
I don't know.
They have 40-minute matches. That's not really my bag.
Is Cesaro going to be there?
If he is
not on the graphic.
If he is, you're going to have to tell him what you've said about him for the last 3 years.
Mercedes Moné is.
We're coming back. All right, we're back here with James Ham as we continue to wait patiently for the Sacramento Kings. James, the Aces, Sparks, and Storm all made a trade this weekend before the Sacramento Kings. And here we are. They're right there in Brooklyn. Just pick up Cam, hand him a jersey, take him to Philadelphia with you. And I think that's what a lot of Kings fans are hoping for. I'm sure that's part of the reason why the noise got extremely loud earlier this morning regarding Cam Johnson and the Sacramento Kings. But it looks like my guess would be, regardless of what happens, the Sacramento Kings are going to take the floor tonight with the usual suspects. And we saw something a little bit different against New York, Hammer. We questioned whether Doug McDermott would get a look, so to speak, from Doug Christie. And he, in fact, did. He played 9 minutes. He was the first one. He was in before Kevin Huerter. Of course, the Kings did their customary go down by 20 routine. And I think Doug maybe started trying to just find shooters, get guys out there to score. But we did see a little bit more of Doug McDermott on Saturday. Do you think that continues?
Yeah, probably. Especially with the Kevin Huerter, potential to trade Kevin Huerter here at not whether it's today, tomorrow, 5 days from now, 8 days from now. I think you need to transition to Doug McDermott either way, just because there's a good chance that he's going to be like sort of the next man up. because I know you guys have mentioned this a bunch of times, but even if they add a Cam Johnson or John Collins, it's probably going to cost them Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles potentially to go make that move. Maybe not with Cam Johnson as much as John Collins, just because of the salary difference there. But that becomes like a bit of of a situation where you're going to be down 2 rotational players and only adding 1. So you'd hope that maybe a Devin Carter can step up, but also maybe that a Doug McDermott can step up. I think the one thing that, like, if you're given opportunities, and it doesn't matter if you're a young Keon Ellis getting an opportunity or Isaac Jones, or if you're a veteran like Doug McDermott. Like, Doug McDermott's on the floor to do one thing, and for him to step out on the floor, play 9 minutes, not grab a rebound, not dish out an assist, not take a single shot, and the only thing that you did in your 9 minutes is to foul one person, that's usually a problem.
Oh, James got to say, see, we weren't even there.
Yeah.
We weren't even there to pick him up. I thought
Sorry,
James was
James.
pulling up a stat or
Sorry.
something. Instead, he was going for the mute. It's the second time I've missed the sneeze from my team. Bad organizer.
Well,
There it is.
Organizer over here.
Tough organizing day, but I don't even know what it looks like because you don't sneeze. So I don't even have a cue.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
At least not here. He's a professional. He does not sneeze in the
No, I try not to yawn. That's what I really try not to do is yawn.
Oh,
I'll fight them joints.
that was a problem this morning.
Scooter says it two turnovers from D'Lo today.
Turnovers.
Oh,
Not a
you
good
had
look.
more
Throw the
of an
ball.
impact on the game than Doug McDermott did. You had at least 2 turnovers.
Well,
Yeah,
Doug
I mean,
didn't have the biggest impact on Saturday.
yeah.
Look,
I mean, what did he run? Like a -11 in 9 minutes? And like, so that's tough. Like, if he's going in there, like, he has to shoot. And I think we've seen games where that's exactly what he does. But then other games where he goes out there and is like, 9 minutes of cardio. And that's, yeah, see, Spectre in the chat says Dougie McCardio. Like, you got to do something. And that's not to blast, Doug for not coming up with 5 or 6 shots, but you are out there for a specific role, and the team needs, especially against how you counter length and athleticism, is that you have shooters, launching away to open the floor up so you can actually get some lanes to the basket, and that didn't happen.
You mentioned it a little bit, just kind of staying on the trade thing just a little bit. And both of you guys can answer, I guess. I'm under the impression that if you get Cam, and one of the reasons why I like the deal for Cam Johnson is it allows you to keep Trey Lyles potentially because the contracts match up easier with just Huerter and Cam Johnson. And one player really changes kind of the depth of your team and how you look at this roster, because you just kind of laid it out. You get Cam Johnson there. That's just one guy. But now, oh, man, we got Cam. We can team him up with Keegan. We got Trey Lyles still coming off the bench. Keon's coming off the bench. And it just seems like a more full roster at that point, a stronger bench just by that one guy. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm more intrigued with the Cam Johnson thing, because it allows you to keep one of the guys that you would still have in your rotation.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the one thing about the Cam Johnson deal, again, just start doing the math. You got $16.8 million with Kevin Huerter. If you throw like a Jordan McLaughlin and I don't know, one of the other minimum guys, whether it's Alex Len, which you'd probably keep, but Colby Jones. So let's say you throw those 2 in, that's $4.2 million. So that puts you at $21 million. So you're taking back 22.5, which is a little bit more, although he does have accelerators and I think he has a no trade clause or something. Cam does, or he has a trade kicker that kicks in. But either way, I think the way that it would work is there's a possibility that you could get closer to a salary without giving up. And if you were able to make it 21 million for 22.5 million, you would be able to stay under the luxury tax. You can go and sign Isaac Jones to a regular contract and still stay under the luxury tax for the season, and sort of move forward with a more complete roster.
if this is in fact the banana and tailpipe all over again,
Yep.
and the trade deadline comes and goes, and the roster for the most part stays the same. Given the fact that the Kings, went on a 6-game winning streak or whatever it was, won a good chunk of games in short order, and then promptly lost 2 and fell like 4 places in the standings, do you think the Sacramento Kings, with what they have, save maybe very small changes, can keep up with the way that this Western Conference moves on a night-to-night basis?
I don't know. Maybe. I would be leery on it though. I mean, look, we talk about this all the time. There's a depth issue on this team, and you have to be active here. And I got to be honest. If I'm a general manager who mid-season already fired his coach, and we all know what that means. Like that's sort of your big bullet here. Um, I'm doing everything in my power to change the roster and make sure that I give Doug Christie every bit of support to keep this thing together. Because if this team does not make the playoffs, and as of right now, you mentioned they're the 10th seed. If they don't make the playoffs, then I fully expect this thing to unravel even further. Like just because we talked about it before about how this thing could spin out of control here and there, like it definitely could continue to spin out of control, and they could let other people go. And I'm not leaving that to chance. If this is like Terrence Long in the against the Red Sox, like don't leave your bat on your shoulder. At least take a hack here and see if you can hit a home run, or if nothing else, a nice solid double in the gap. So, that's where I'm at. Like, Monty and Wes, it's on them to improve this roster. Like you can only go so far, and then we're reminded of the limitations of this roster time and time again, which is exactly what happened on Saturday. You're just reminded that like they can't compete with the bigger teams in the league. And, again, everyone was on the court, like whether Fox was at 80% or 73% of himself or whatever, the other guys were all there. Like you had your entire roster available like they do tonight. And that just means that like if you can't hang with specific teams, and it's not because you're not shooting the ball well or anything else, it's because you just don't have the prerequisite, size and athleticism, and that's a problem.
Scott K in the chat, I think he's a CKM alumni, so he is pretty bright. He asked a good question, though.
Why do you think that?
Well, we had a whole discussion when you were gone. He was CKM, McClatchy. We handle business, you know what I mean? Beat Kennedy on Friday, did what we do.
You're 40, right?
Yeah. What
Okay.
that got to do with
I don't know. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, man. Come on, man. Shout out McClatchy, man, all day.
Okay.
Lions. Wow.
Don't do that.
Know the vibes?
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a good question. Though.
I'll be leaving now.
He says, do you think Doug Christie gets the interim label taken off at the end of the season? I'll go a step further and ask you as well. Do you think that happens at all during the season?
I don't think it will happen during the season, and it's specific. Doug is a team player, right? And he understands that they already owe a full contract to Mike Brown. And so when he got the interim tag, I don't know what the pay bump was, but you always get a pay bump, for taking over the team. And whether, he got $1 million pay bump or whatever he got, I don't know what it is. But at the end of the day, I do think that he has every opportunity to have the full-time job. And I would like to tell you that like just because if they don't make the playoffs that he's not going to get the job type deal. I don't know about that. I think what we've seen already right now is that he's turned the team around, and you already have good vibes, and it did not go south like I thought it would, regardless of who took over. And so that's a good sign for Doug that that you won 10 of your first 12 games. Even if you lose a couple of games here, I don't think anyone's panicking behind the scenes about what Doug is doing as a coach. There is going to come a point though where this summer that they're going to have to either give him the job or go somewhere else. And again, don't forget that like part of that will play into like who's running the team. Like I think Doug has a stronger case for staying around than like the GM slash assistant GM if
Mhm.
they don't make the playoffs. But then that means you're going to have to find a GM who's willing to have Doug be his head coach.
Never
And so
good.
that's never a good situation to be in. And you also don't want to like backtrack and say, well, Doug, will you go back to being a regular, coach? It's like, well, look at how good I did, as the interim. So I think it's a bit of a like a dicey situation, but I do think that this team is going to continue to win and continue to turn things around this season. And I think Doug will be given an opportunity here to coach his team long term.
It's interesting too because when the season's over, you pretty much have to remove the first 30 games to determine what Doug Christie's record is, right? You determine his record and his standalone record, not necessarily the Sacramento Kings record. Which brings me to a question for both of you and everybody else. 23 and 22 right now. De'Aaron dealing with what he's dealing with, the shortcomings on the roster. This team still feel like an underachieving team?
I'm going to say no. I mean, as a whole, yes, but who they are today, I mean, they look like a team that, again, if they can avoid major catastrophic injuries, and they can get a little healthier with De'Aaron, like I think this is a
Who they
playoff
are
team.
to try to grab what you just who they are under Doug Christie isn't underachieving.
Yes, who they are under Doug Christie is not underachieving. No, under Doug, I mean, I think if anything, they overachieved a little bit. Any close game they've won. They've dropped a couple of bad ones, but the close games, you can say, hey, they were right in it.
See, it's our rule. Don't go down 20 and you'll win.
Yeah.
Simple.
do you
No,
think?
I agree. Yeah.
As a whole, they are underachieving. What they've been able to do since they were in that hole is not underachieving. Right? Like they've been able to get back above water. They've been able to get themselves back into things. But if I told you on January 27th that they'd be, what are they, one game over 500?
Yeah.
Like, nah, I'm disappointed.
Before
in
the
that one.
season started, yeah.
I'm disappointed in that one. I would think they'd be a lot better than that. But this is why you have context to everything, because we've seen the journey of this team this year. And like James said, when you see the journey and you see what it took for them to get to this point, it's not as underachieving at that point.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm going to lose track of Doug's record. Is it 10-4?
10-4, I think.
10-4. Okay.
Well, they were 13 and 18 under Mike. So yeah, they've got 22 losses and 23 wins. So 10 and 10-4.
What do you think Jordy's trying to do? I mean, we've speculated we talk about overachieving. It felt like Brooklyn was overachieving for the briefest of moments, and then it's settled down like a little bit for them. Now they're 14 and 32. But is Jordy just following Sean's orders here? Like, what do you think they're trying to accomplish out there in Brooklyn?
They're trying to lose as many games as possible and get into the Cooper flag race.
Mm.
I don't know if you guys watched any of him
I
lately,
got a
but
ways to go.
my
Well,
goodness, he's really, really good. Look, I think that they're trying to build through the draft. They're trying to get better this offseason, next offseason, and then clear out, again, once they get rid of the Ben Simmons contract, all of a sudden they've got a whole lot of money to spend. And so maybe they can recover and start building this thing up pretty quickly. When you add that to all the draft picks that they've been able to accumulate over the last couple of years, that like there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to be really tough because I feel like Jordy might be in the same situation that like Hardy is in Utah, where you're going to have to go full Shawshank and climb through like 400 yards of stink, smell, and filth to get out the other side. And, it's just not great. So you hope that Jordy survives it, but they clearly don't want to win. And that's the obvious objective here is to lose as many games as possible. And that's never a good place to be when you're a head coach for your first job and the team wants to lose and you leave your first job and you're 60 games under 500 as a coach or something. It just doesn't, it's not easy to recover from.
Do you think they're just going to kind of strip this thing down until they actually do that? Because one of the things with this particular Nets team is they were playing well, like even despite everybody thinking that's how they were going to go about things. They were playing well because the guys they had on there, and then you got the coach Jordy Fernandez. They played 2-10s. They would work at what they do. So do you think they'll be successful in stripping this thing down enough where the organization can execute their plan?
Yeah, I hope so. You want the best for Jordy. I mean, Jordy is a really good assistant coach here in Sacramento. He's a good dude. And you hope that he's allowed to build a culture, like I bring this up all the time, like Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. You can love that team or hate that team, but you know that they're going to play hard every night. And that's what I felt like Jordy was doing. And even now, Jordy's teams are still playing hard. It's just they don't have the talent to compete, like tonight. Like, how do you go into a game and you're missing Cam Thomas and you're missing Cam Johnson and you're missing Bojan Bogdanovic and you're Watkins and is that who it is? Either way, you're missing just like an entire roster walking into tonight's game, and that doesn't feel good. And plus they traded your point guard and they traded, any player that was playing well, they've gotten rid of so far as like Dorian Finney-Smith. So yeah, it's kind of a tough run here, and you have to see how they kind of come out the other side.
You think Ben Simmons in the league next year? Playing 25 minutes a night, played 30 of the, 48-ish, 46. Played 30 of the 46 games so far. Not particularly great, but still the 7 assists, a game. Again, he's playing basketball this year.
Yeah. That's a really good question because I don't know.
I don't either.
I really don't know. I mean, can I see him on like a $10 million deal? Sure, but is he going to want to take that, or
could he even get that? A $10 million a year deal?
In like 2 years, $10 million.
Oh, so 5 per.
No,
yeah.
No, 2 years, $20 million, 10 per.
Oh, I don't know.
It just seems like that's.
I don't know.
Almost, if you've been in the league as long as he has and you've got a name, like you could get 10 mil.
I think he's going to have a difficult time. I think he'll get a 1-year deal, and then whoever brings him in, there's as much as it is like the back problems and the other, like there's a lot of just flat out he's kind of quit on teams, and the like mental aspect of the game. There's a lot of concerns about that, and so I think for me, a team is probably going to give him a 1-year make good deal and see if he fits in. And I think it's going to be a low value deal. I think $3 to $5 million. Like, you need to know that he really does want to play the game and he's not just collecting paychecks. But if you can't get him right, he is like a very, very good talent. I mean, pass the ball. He's one of the better defenders in the league. Can play 1 through 5 at like 5 at 6'10". Yeah, he's like a really intriguing player, but I'm not giving anything up that's like, legitimate contract for him.
Less of a problem than Jimmy Butler is.
Oh, that guy.
That guy ain't franchise killer right there.
He's wilding on socials.
Well, he's not gonna kill Miami. He's annoyed the hell out of Miami, but he isn't gonna do any harm to them. I don't know how this story ends, but I'm curious. Must see TV. The NBA is fantastic.
I love this game.
Indeed. Indeed. How many other NBA slogans can you remember, James? Those were the 2 that we came up with. I love this game, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, NBA basketball. It's
I don't even know what the slogan is now. Does it have one?
I think we have a game on. Like, there's been a couple. I don't know.
Lazy game on.
Did they ever do where amazing happens for a short stint?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesse wasn't even alive for the other two, but he remembers that one.
I was alive for those commercials.
There you go. Where amazing happens. All right.
Like
I'm
2010.
NBA second apron.
NBA, where you must learn the tax penalties.
Yeah.
It's not quite as sexy as it used to be. The NBA, our contracts are already signed.
The NBA, at least he still gets paid.
Shout out De'Aaron.
Mm.
Shout out De'Aaron Fox for that. Oh, so you got a good night coming from De'Aaron, huh?
Yeah, I think he's gonna have a good night. I'm saying 20 plus points, and efficient.
Okay, so I was going to say 20 shots.
I'd say about 17 or so. I went more. Beam Money's going to be out on the social soon. I went more on De'Aaron Fox three pointers made. Is that one?
Is that 2.5? Oh,
1.5.
Oh,
You're gonna get about 2 or 3.
Okay, pal. Boy, if there was a free throw wager, I'd hit the less on that one.
Man.
Like he can't.
There
get
is
there?
I don't know if he's on there though, but there is.
Oh,
Free throws.
He had 10 3 games ago.
yeah. I don't think he shot a free throw since, has he?
No, 2 games without a free throw. He's had 3 of the last 6 without a free throw, and he only has 1 other game the entire season outside of those 3 where he had 0 free throws.
That is absolutely insane.
I think I got
Absolutely nuts.
field goals attempted and free throws attempted.
Yeah, 10 for 10 against the Warriors, 0 for 0 in his last 2 games.
But you have free throws made at 4.
De'Aaron?
Oh,
Hit the less.
oh,
He ain't even gonna take 4, much less make 4. I hope for a bounce back night tonight, and I hope we're covering something really exciting tomorrow when James Ham and Kyle Matson take the radio beginning at 10 a.m. Here on Sacramento